remember the first like days in the Delta? The first time you heard gunfire?
Oh yeah, yep. I was actually down in one of my jobs when I wasn't well, I was a trainee then. So one of my jobs was a after steering watch, and that was a in the rear of the boat. And you what you did was you took over the ship by manual control in case you took a bad hit or something. They couldn't steer from the conning deal, so you'd have to do it by hand down in the back. And that's what I did. Me and another guy were down there. So I was down there the first time, and then we heard all this ruckus and general quarters and
What kind of ruckus?
general alarm deals.
So gunshots.
Gunshots, explosions, you know, and everybody was running, and you know.
Were you worried?
Well, I said, like, boy, this is for real, you know, what the heck's going on here, you know. And we had our watertight doors, you know, and I had them bolted down, and we got a call from the conning tower from the officer of the deck saying that just to stand by because we were under attack. And it was mostly just small arms and some rocket attacks and stuff like that, but they took a lot of rifle hits on the side of the boat and on the conning tower and stuff like that. And so the guys were opening up with 50 calibers at that time, so it was pretty intense.
So you heard gunfire coming from the boat out into the jungle?
Yep, yeah. We were in a bad spot there, and they opened up on us, and most of us had these phony rockets. I can't remember what they called them, but most of the time they'd look like fireworks that went bad, you know, where they go up and shoo, shoo, you know, and they'd come up and they'd splash in front of the boat, you know, and stuff like that. This was later when I seen that stuff, but yeah, it was pretty.
But you were down below, so you didn't even see any.
No, I didn't see it that first time. No.
You just heard this, and this was your introduction to.
Yep, me and the other guy that was with me, he was, well, they called his boot camps, you know, because we were new guys, and he was pretty intense. He's like, what are we doing? What if we get hit? What do we do, you know? I think we just stay here, you know, till somebody tells us something different, so, yeah.
Was that the right thing to do?
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
just stay put?
You didn't leave your post, you know.
You didn't go and grab a gun and return fire?
Nope.
Because that wasn't your duty at the time?
That wasn't my duty at the time.
If you would have been on a gun, that would have been your duty?
Yep. I'd have been stayed there, which I did later. I was a port side 50 caliber was my spot, and so anytime we got action, I had the 50 caliber going if I got fire from my side.
So you stayed put, kept steering.
Yep.
Did you, when you're under fire, do you gun it and get the heck out of there, or do you just stay the course?
No, they were probably had her going as fast as they could, which I think was very fast, maybe 12 knots, 10 knots, something like that. It's a very slow moving boat, you know. So yeah, that's why it was such a big target, you know.
But it looks like a tank itself. So if you got rifle fire, was it like just BBs bouncing off?
Oh yeah, it was just pinging, you know. All
so that wasn't something really to get too freaked out about.
No. Guys up on the conning, they were up in the open, you know.
Yeah, they could get killed.
And the guys on the 50 calibers and stuff in the forward and rear gun mounts, they had a big steel ring around them, you know, because you can see here.
Yeah.
They had that around them, but when they start opening up, you know, you just have to try and stay behind there and hope that you didn't get hit, you know.
I'm trying to understand the enemy lines. This wasn't a clean enemy line like it was in World War II, or you know, there was no enemy line, was there?
The enemy was everywhere. Once you got into the Delta, no matter where you went, they were everywhere. You didn't know where they were. They had a pretty good surveillance deal. They knew kind of where the Viet Cong were at times, you know, in areas. So that's when we'd have those PBRs or gunships with us, because they knew that was going to be a bad area. So
were they like your bodyguards, those PBRs? Yeah. So they kind of go out in front of you?
Yep.
And clear out areas for you to go?
Yep. The Viet Cong didn't want to mess with them, any of them, because they had really wicked firepower, you know. And they could level acre so fast it was amazing. And I see it many times. They just opened up and they had them what they call mini Gatling guns, and they just unreal.
Would they ever open up fire preemptively? Like, I think they're in there, or did they always have to wait for there to be gunfire?
If they seen any suspicious action and nobody responded or something, you know, then they would just open up on them, you know. So then we'd always be ready. A lot of times we'd return fire too, you know. What they like to do is get up in the big palm trees and stuff like that.
The gunmen.
Snipers, yeah.
Yeah.
They'd get up in there and then they get a better angle to shoot at you and everything. And so a lot of times if you'd seen a little puff of smoke and then them PBRs or the gunships would just open up on that spot and it was gone. It was pretty scary.
So if you're a sniper in a tree,
yeah,
you're gonna die because you're either gonna get hit or your tree's gonna fall down.
Yep. You get a couple shots off and they didn't see you. You know, that's what they were hoping, but they had too many eyes out there. You know, so everybody was on watch in different spots, and yeah, so it was many times they blew them right away. You know, it was pretty cool actually. When you'd get a lot of action like that, then they'd call up either like Green Beret or Special Forces or Army guys, units or whatever, and then they'd come in because they knew there was a lot of VC in the area, so they'd go in there.
On land.
Yep, they'd bring the helicopters in, land them, and they'd go in there and then go after them, So I wouldn't want to have been up in there. I'll tell you that.
You wouldn't want to have been one of the enemy.
No, nope.
Because it's a high risk, low reward attack.
Yep.
You're probably not going to do much.
Nope.
And you're probably going to die.
Nope. Their big deal was they were trying to hit the conning tower up there, where the officers were. Mm-hmm. That was most of the time where the shots were going, or they were hoping to hit, with the rockets and stuff. Because that was the control point of the boat, so, yeah. And then they were real good at what they do is they dig holes in the river beds and cover, and they put barrels down there and they'd stash ammunition and stuff in them. We found them lots of times. We'd haul like Special Forces guys up, drop them off, and they knew where there was a lot of VC in there, so they'd go up and down the rivers and they'd find these barrels hidden down in the mud and the dirt, covered up. Mm-hmm. And they were full of guns and ammo and rockets and stuff like that.
Was it all like Chinese and Russian made stuff?
A lot of that, yep.
So AK-47s and whatnot?
Lots of 47s, yeah. Yep.
And what would the Army do with those?
They just destroy them.
Just melt them or something?
Yep. I don't know. They took them. You
wouldn't say, hey, I want to use this.
No, good luck on that one.
No, that would, yeah. I want to take that home. That's a souvenir.
Yeah. No, I never had no interest in that, but they had these sampans and junks running up and down the rivers, which we used to stop and check all the time.
What's up, Chief?
The junk boat, Captain. We're going to take a routine check.
Well, let's forget routine now and let them go.
These boats are running supplies in this delta, Captain. I'm going to take a look.
Chief, my mission's got priority here. Hell, you wouldn't even be in this part of the river if it wasn't for me.
Until we reach your destination, Captain, you're just on for the ride. Stand by, lad.
Throw the rope,
asshole. All right, come on. Let's bring it over.
And some were hostile and some were just normal fisher.
No, most time what they did was they were smuggling arms. They'd have ammunition and rifles and rockets and stuff like that they would smuggle down to the VC in different spots, so. And then if we found any contraband on there, anything like that, then we'd call one of them PBRs or one of those types of boats, and then they'd come in and pick them up and take them away, take the boat, and usually they take stuff off the boat and then sink it.
And what about the guy who was driving it?
The guys would be hauled away. They'd take them away. That happened quite a few times actually.
They'd be POWs.
Yep. Yeah, they took them someplace, I don't know where, but they took them away from us, because we couldn't handle them. So, yeah, I had seen that a lot of times.
Was that a fairly standard episode, the first one you experienced? Where you heard some explosions, heard some gunfire, it went on for what, just a few minutes? Several minutes?
Yeah, sometimes it would last half hour, 45 minutes, You'd kind of go through a long area and there might be sporadic fire
So there must have been hundreds of Viet Cong.
Oh yeah.
Just dotted along the bank.
Yep,
hidden away.
That was their deal. They just get in ambush mode and wait for you to come through, you know, and hope they could get a pot shot at you. That's they did the same thing with the PBRs, you know, and the other smaller boats.
So it sounds like the PBR had a more risky job than
they were more risky,
boat.
but they were more deadly. They were faster. They had more in that small little boat. They had twin 50s in there.
But their job was to escort you.
Yep.
So they weren't just going to tear off and leave you behind.
No, they would just, if they seen fire, they'd tear off and go after the fire close, you know, open up, but then they'd come back and get us to wherever we were going.
Would they ever like go behind you because your ship was like a block, and they'd stay behind you?
Yeah, these guys were crazy. They wanted to be up front. They wanted to be wherever the action was. They weren't like that. Sometimes they come up and you could see their PBR was all shot to hell. Those guys were really something.
They were hardcore soldiers.
Oh man, every day they had to face that. You know, we only had to do it, you know, every now and then we'd run into that. These guys were doing that every day. They were some bad dudes.
That's what I wanted to ask. I was like, different guys. I mean, the ones who enlist are more likely to, I assume, embrace combat. Like it might excite men,
yep.
Some men. Whereas if a guy is drafted against his will and he has no interest in it, he might just be very afraid and I want off. I want out of here.
Yep, get a safe spot and stay away from everything. You know, yeah. There were some guys like that. They when everything started, they just bailed out and went down below decks. You know, so. I always stayed up. I was, you know, as a gunner's mate, I had to stay up on top, you know, so I was either in gun mount or 50 caliber, and there was maybe another 4, 5, 6 guys in the same spot there. You know, you just stayed there. You had to, if you didn't hold your post, you were probably going to get a captain's mast and get, you know, maybe even get discharged or something for leaving your post. It's the same as guys in the Army and stuff. If you were on a post, you didn't leave it. I mean, that was your spot, you know.
What happened if you had to go to the bathroom?
Yeah, tough. Just had to hold it. Mm-hmm. Yep. That happened many times. There's quite a few guys that probably peed their pants and stuff, you know. You didn't have no choice, you know. So you did not leave the post.
When there was a guy who just got freaked out and panicked,
that happened.
Taking fire, and he did leave his post, or maybe he hid behind that steel shield and just sort of covered.
That happened too.
Would he be reprimanded?
If he left his post, he would. But if if he just kind of panicked, you know, and stayed down out of everything, no, they would. They'd probably get a stiff talking to from his head petty officer or something like that. And a lot of guys were, and you couldn't blame them because it was a new thing, you know, to be getting shot at, you know. So a lot of guys would panic and, you know, like I say, try and get down and stay down. And they're supposed to be up there, you know, maybe helping a guy on a 50 caliber holding the rounds as they go in and stuff like that, you know. So yeah, it was. I don't remember anybody ever getting disciplined, you know, for, you know, being scared. You know, everybody was scared.
And that first attack, you were lucky because you were down below and you were safe.
Yep.
Were you as lucky the next time, or were you more exposed?
No. Next time up there, I was actually a gunner's mate in training, so I was with another gunner's mate on a 50 caliber.
So like on top.
Yep.
Of the ship there.
Yep, right up on. I was up on the port side.
So you were as vulnerable as it gets.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Do you wear a helmet?
Yep, yeah, the helmets on and flak jackets.
What's a flak jacket?
It was a heavy duty, the police wear them now, flak jackets.
Bulletproof vest?
Bulletproof, yeah, similar. These weren't that good, but they would stop around.
Okay, from your vitals, but your arms and your neck is exposed. And
just came over, you know, just like the life vest. It was the same thing, but it was real thick stuff in there, and they were real heavy and hot, but you wanted to wear that when you're up on topside, you know. So.
And how did that attack go down when you were up there?
Well, it was just a small skirmish the first time. We had just some sniper fire up in different trees, and we didn't have a gunship that time. We just had I think it was a Mike boat with us that time. And when that started, the Mike boat took off and just opened up into the trees, and boom, and that's all there was. We never heard any more fire, so evidently they must have got the snipers, you know. So.
How did you respond? That second time, you were up top when you were under attack.
Oh, I was nervous, you know. I was like, holy buckets, this is really happening to me, you know. I can't believe this.
And you're how old?
But well, see, I went in, I think when I was right out of high school, so 18. Well, 18, 19, someplace in there. Yeah.
Do you remember how you reacted, like what you did, your behavior when you were under fire?
No, I just held my post, you know, like I was supposed to. That's all you could do, you know. And you were trained to fire your weapon, whatever weapon you had, you know, whether it was a rifle or a 30 caliber or a 50 caliber or 40 millimeter or grenade launcher, whatever. You just held it, you know.
And you did.
And you did, yeah.
So you were a good soldier.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's what you did, you know. You had to take care of your fellow sailors, you know. So everybody did the same thing, you know. It was just hang in there, you know. That's all you had to do.
And you just pray you don't get hit.
Yep, that's it. Hope one of them rockets or something don't land where you are, you know. I actually had rockets hit the water in front of me and splash water on me that close. That happened a couple times. That was pretty scary. Dripping wet, and it's like, boy, if that had been another 10, 15 feet, who knows, you know.
The fire usually came in clumps, right?
Oh yeah, yep.
So when it was done and there was no more fire for a couple of minutes, you probably thought, okay, we're good for now?
Nope, you would be on general quarters until you were out of that area. And you just held that for a long time.
But you never knew when the next attack was going to happen. So
well,
were you always on edge?
Oh yeah, you'd go another half mile, maybe a mile, maybe a couple miles, 5 miles. But you stayed on general quarters and alert because it come around a bend and it could happen again.
And because you didn't know when they were going to attack, I mean, could you even get a good night's sleep?
Sleep was very rare when you're in combat zone. Most of the time you were on, you'd go in combat deals. You go 4 on, 4 off. Okay. You kept rotating.
Yeah.
You know, so say like 15 guys, you'd rotate 4 on, 4 off. You know, go get 4 hours of shut eye, then you come back, rotate with the other guys. And
I thought you meant 4 days on, 4 days off.
No, hours. Just kept rotating. 4 on, 4 off.
And you would do that for as much as a month at a time?
Oh yeah. Whenever you were in the bad areas, you would. If you were in general quarters, they always did that. Yep.
So if it was nighttime, it didn't matter?
Nighttime, you'd be on alert too, but most time at nighttime they wouldn't open up because that would really tell you where they were, you know, because you could see it in the darkness.
Okay.
So, and the only time we did most of the nighttime deals when we were going in, like up into Cambodia and stuff like that, because we weren't supposed to be there. You know, Cambodia was not was off limits actually, but it wasn't.
Do you remember the first time you saw either a Vietnamese dude, a North Vietnamese dude, or one of your...
Yes, I do. It's pretty interesting because I was, we were in, I believe it was Vung Tau, and we pulled up to the landing and we were offloading, I think we were offloading beer for them guys at the base there, beer and some other stuff, and I was on the watch, walking up and down the side of the boat. Mm-hmm. Watch what the Viet Cong like to do is they'd send stuff down the river, you know, like garbage, you know, and then they would put these mines in there, and they'd hit the boats. You know, they actually I think had a couple LSTs that got hit and got sunk up in there. So what you did when you're on your watch, you had either, most time I had a M1 carbine, okay, and then a 45, and then
your rifle.
Yep, and then a grenade launcher, and you'd shoot percussion grenades. And if you seen a bunch of debris coming, you'd shoot a percussion grenade into that area as close as you could, and then usually that if there was something in there, it would poof, you know, she'd blow up away from the boat or stuff like that. But the first time I seen actual Viet Cong was this time. I was on the watch. I was walking up and down, and a PBR came in, and they had 6 Viet Cong prisoners on there. Had them all tied up and blindfolded, and the PBR pulled in right next to me. And I went up to the bow, turned around, I was coming back, and must have been some of that debris that came down, and it hit the back of that PBR and blew it. Everybody had just gotten off. There was one guy on there. And it blew the back right out. I seen it come right up out of the water. It's a great big boom. Of course, then general quarters, everybody on the land side, and our boat, everybody was on general quarters, you know. And but the guy that was on the boat, he got, you know, banged up a little bit, but he was okay. But yeah, but the PBR went up, came down, was kind of sitting halfway down in the water and out, you know, and it was kind of crazy. And when the explosion happened, they kind of knocked me back, you know, and I dropped my rifle, and I got up, and everybody was running and screaming, and yeah, it was pretty hectic.
Wow. Was that one of your closest encounters?
That was probably the closest, because if I would have been, say, walked a little further down midships or something like that, if that wouldn't have hit the PBR, it would have probably hit our boat. So,
would it have done damage to your boat, or was your boat just indestructible?
No, it would have done damage. They put pretty good explosives in there. This PBR went right out of the water.
Did they get mad at you because you didn't detonate it? When it was in the river?
No, because it happened when I was on another point. You know, you just went from one end of the boat to the other end boat, and then you
How can you stay alert that whole time? You know, it sounds like you have to always be alert.
You do. You don't want to be daydreaming, you know.
Right.
You had officers of the watch, petty officers of the watch, usually a first class or a chief or somebody like that. And when you were on watch, they were on watch, so they would be walking back and forth, making sure that everybody's doing their jobs, you know.
They're on watch to make sure you're on watch.
Exactly. Yep.
So if you're sitting there lighting a cigarette and just twiddling your thumbs or sitting on the end of the dock,
you were going to hear about it. Yeah. So no, that didn't happen too much, you know. So no, when I was doing that, I was paying attention.
Was this on your first tour up into the Delta when that explosion happened?
No, that was maybe, I don't know, I think we'd been up there 3-4 times by then, so, yeah. This is actually the place where I told you that boat like this got blown up.
It was a boat like this?
Yep, got blown up out of the water.
What was the mission into Cambodia about?
It'd be usually what that was. We'd be taking special forces guys. I know one time we had these tunnel rat guys on board, and we were bringing them up to meet some PBRs or Mike boats. I don't remember which it was. Way up by one of these little deltas. We hauled them up, dropped them off, and then they went way up in there to check out this area where they were supposedly. The Viet Cong had all these tunnel deals going, and these guys were, they were something else. Oof.
What did they do?
They just go up in there with a 45 or a knife, and they crawl into these holes and go and see if they could flush them out. Yeah, these guys didn't say a word. I mean, I never talked to any of them. They wouldn't talk to you. They just sat there and stared at you. You know, they never said nothing.
These were Americans?
Oh yeah. Yeah, we called them tunnel rats, you know, they were goofy. But
why, they just had a high tolerance for risk?
Oh yeah, I mean, just think about that. Would you want to go crawl into a hole and see if there's, you know, Vietnamese or Viet Cong down in there?
How did they find volunteers for that?
Well, special guys that did it, you know, just crazy guys.
So they would engage in hand-to-hand?
Oh yeah, that was all hand-to-hand, and they go through them tunnels and booby traps, and of course they went intense training, you know, to figure all that out. But
were you all paid the same?
Oh, I have no idea what everybody was paid on their rate, you know. You were like E1s, E2s, E3s, E4s, everything had a different rate, different amount of.
So if you're a private tunnel rat, you're getting the same pay as a private
probably
Navy guy?
Yeah, probably. Yep.
That doesn't seem.
Yeah, you didn't get anything special money wise just because you were high risk. I mean, you know, it's just like the Green Berets or the SEALs. You know, they all get paid the same. You know, just they're just special people that can handle that kind of stuff. You know, myself, I can't imagine doing it. The tunnel rat deal, that to me was just like wow.
Because they would kill a man face to face.
Oh yeah, many times or get killed. You know, a lot of times they didn't come back.
Right. I mean, were you ever there when they would go on an assignment and not come back, so you knew they died?
This one time we brought them up, we just dropped them off, and then we didn't have to pick them up, so I don't know what happened to them. That was the only time we really carried them guys, you know. But we had a lot of, like Green Berets, Special Forces guys that we'd haul up, and then we'd go back and pick them up, you know, say in a week or 4 or 5 days or whatever, and they'd have, you know, casualties. You know, guys would be wounded, or there'd be a couple body bags that you had to load on, and you know, so they'd hit some stuff, you know.
Did you ever see a fellow soldier on the boat get hit?
Nope.
Oh, really?
Nope. I seen them, you know, get shots and guys ducking, and you know, heard the rounds hitting stuff, you know, but nobody got hit.
Wow.
While I was there. No.
Do you remember the first corpse you saw?
Yeah, we picked up on that marking time deal. What we had to do is they'd have skirmishes, you know, maybe a day or two before we got up there, and then what you had to do is went up and down the rivers, and then if you seen bodies, you had to fish them in. If they were Viet Cong, you just pushed them aside, you know, look for dog tags. Mostly just looking for Americans or South Vietnamese. And if you found any South Vietnamese, then you would have to fish the body out. They'd bring it in and put it in a bag, and then we'd bring it to the base when we got back, and then they'd take care of it. So we had to do that quite a bit.
How did you know it was South Vietnamese or North Vietnamese?
They didn't until you hauled it in, and if you didn't find any dog tags on them, you just pushed it away.
Did the North Vietnamese dress a certain way? Was there a...
No, they all dressed pretty same, you know, real flimsy. There wasn't much to them. They had shorts or real baggy pants, you know, and flimsy shirts, and you know.
There was no uniform for the North and one for the South.
No, none of the guys we did. I'm sure they had uniforms, but we didn't find any like that. They just looked like civilians, what they looked like, you know. They might have been, you know, if you didn't find dog tags on them. So, yeah. Now who's calling? Telemarketer. Yeah.
So you'd just see bodies in the water.
Yep, you'd see bodies floating, and there'd usually be full of like crabs. You know, sometimes snakes and crabs in there, and we had these big long gaff deals we used, and we'd, you know, get in LCMs, which is a little boat that we had on both sides. They'd put them in, they'd go down there, fish it out, you know, see what it was. If they had dog tags or whatever, then they'd have to go into a body bag.
Okay, I was going to say, what'd you do with the body then?
Yeah, put it in a body bag and then put down in the front of the boat down here.
Was there a line distinguishing North from South Vietnam at the time?
I think there probably was, but it was hearsay probably, you know. We didn't have to go. We knew when we went to this area, Cambodia, that that it wasn't. We were over the line. We knew that.
Yeah, you were in
but where the actual line was, I have no idea.
But I mean, when you were in South Vietnam, so when you were way down by the Delta, were you safer than when you were venturing up further north? Like the further north you went, was it the more dangerous?
Oh yeah, yep, yeah. Because a lot of times you're going up in areas where maybe they hadn't done exploring there, you know, to see if there's Viet Cong strongholds or whatever, you know. So yeah, it was a little hairy.
And the whole purpose of the war was to clear Vietnam of the communists.
Yep.
So it was to take back Vietnam, the whole country.
Yep, yep, exactly. Well, you know, the French had tried, you know, before us, you know, and they were there a long time and they failed. So, you know, if the United States, in my opinion, would have done it different, they could have probably won that war. You know, when they started the bombing, you know, of Hanoi and all that stuff, they really almost had the Viet Cong at their mercy, but then they quit because of all the bad home press. You know, like say killing of civilians and babies and whatever, and that, you know, Johnson just couldn't handle it, so he put an end to it. And that gave the Viet Cong a second chance to regroup, and then they came back really strong. And they came back over through Saigon and all that.
Yeah.
Yep. It was a political, you know, big political war, really.
Yeah, because you hear about the civilian casualties in Vietnam.
Oh yeah.
You hear about it in villages inland.
Yep.
Clearing out a village. You know, it's sort of...
My Lai was a prime example of real bad stuff there, you know, so, yeah.
So you'd hear stories of guys on those PBRs, though, they would open fire on a village, and if they killed a child, they killed a child.
If they got any fire from shore, they just opened up.
No matter if there was kids and women?
Yeah, well, that's what the Viet Cong like to do, is have the villagers out there and use them as shields, you know. So they'd have them out, and then they'd open fire, you know, so guys didn't really have...
Would they just open fire, or were they like aiming? Were they aiming for the bad guys?
Wherever they seen either gunfire or rockets or you know, people were running or whatever, they had to assume it was the enemy, you know. So you know, this is what the guys are telling me. You know, you don't have no option. That's where a lot of this baby killer and all that stuff came from, you know, because people didn't realize what was involved in this kind of action and warfare. You know, it was bad. It's kind of like the what the guys nowadays in Iraq and Afghanistan have to deal with. You know, the civilians, most of them, excuse me, are good, but you got them that they you know, they cover up with bombs, you know, on their clothing, just to blow people away. You know, so it's a bad deal. Vietnam wasn't really like that. We used to go to Da Nang Air Base all the time from where we put into the harbor, and then we get to go up to the air base, and they had a Air Force base up there. Then we got to go up there to a big mess hall, you know, and they had beer and everything up there. So, but we'd have to go through these villages going up there, and you always carried arms with you. You know, and never got attacked all the times we went up there, but you had to be prepared for it, you know, so, yeah, it was different.
Was it frustrating because you couldn't tell a Hmong from a South Vietnamese from a North Vietnamese?
Oh yeah, they all looked the same.
Yeah.
You know, that's what we, you know, yeah, they all looked the same to me, you know, so.
And how were you received? Like when you guys floated through a village?
Probably the same, you know.
Or did the civilians look at you and like, were they like, we don't like you, you're our enemy, you bring death?
Know, you could tell right away if they were friendly, you know, and a lot of them knew what the Americans were there for, you know, but a lot of them, you know, kind of treated you like you were just like the Viet Cong, maybe just not as bad, you know. Because of all the atrocities and everything that had happened, you know, so well, it's hard not to think that way, you know.
Would you ever hear things yelling out to you from the shore?
Oh yeah, we'd go through and you could hear them talking, you know, they're talking real loud, you know, what they were saying, I have no idea.
Would you ever see kids like yell out to the Americans, or?
Oh yeah, they would.
Oh, it's American. You might even wave.
Oh yeah, they'd wave, you know, and you'd hear throw me chocolate or throw me cigarettes.
Oh really?
Oh yeah, we go through them villages when we went to Da Nang. They would just be on you. The kids would come out of everywhere, and they'd come up and they'd try, and they were good. They could slip a ring or a watch off your hand. You couldn't believe how fast they were.
Would they ask for donations?
Oh
asking
yeah,
for
yeah, begging all. Oh yeah, begging all the time.
Would you have American dollars, or would you have Vietnamese
well,
dollars?
no, we had what they called MPC, military payment certificates.
Okay.
And it was just fake money. So when you went to a base or whatever, it would be the same. So if you had a $10 one, you could get $10 worth of stuff with it. You didn't usually have any American money with you.
Well, what if you wanted to? What if you were hanging out in a village and you just wanted to buy a soda from a village?
That never happened. I never got into that situation. But yeah, usually if you had, they wanted cigarettes, you know, stuff like that. If you had cigarettes, they could trade cigarettes for, you know, something to drink or whatever. You know, they liked the cigarettes, American cigarettes.
Hi, I'm Brandon Fertig of the Periphery. Thanks for enjoying part 2 of my interview with Vietnam combat vet Tom. Click here for part 3, Sailor Life. But first, please like and subscribe if you're enjoying these videos. And if you'd like to help support, or just learn about future projects of mine, go to my Patreon page here. Thanks again.